Good afternoon and welcome to our first personal property activity headquarters Improve the Move podcast. I'm Audrey Taylor and beside me is Mr. Karl Stanton. We're going to throw out some caveats this morning or this afternoon regarding our podcast. And the first thing we want you to know is that this podcast is not intended to take the place of any face-to-face counseling. If there's anything we can stress is that with any move that you perform, that counseling, going into a personal property office and being counseled is so important. They can provide you with the latest updates, new information, and get you squared away for any type of move. At the very end of the podcast, we will host any questions, concerns, screams that you might like to throw at us. Okay. And for our first podcast, we are going to tackle PPMs, personally procured moves. And I know that many of you have been through a personally procured move through your career, and they're nothing new, so you think. But there have been changes, updates, and different nuances that have come about in the PPM program. And we want to keep you informed of that through every platform available, whether it be Facebook, the podcast, our splash page, the different resources that we have. We want you to be abreast of that. Okay? And the reason that we selected personal procured moves for our first podcast is because this year here at PPA, we did see a very high number of inquiries, questions, emails regarding PPMs, whether it be about weight tickets, whether it be about how it's processed, when is it going to hit finance? Is this the right amount? It seems really low. Is this the right amount? It seems too high. So with all of that coming in, we knew that we might have had some disconnect. At the Air Force level, they also saw a high number of congressionals, BCMRs, IG complaints. So with that uptick, that's why we're addressing PPMs with our first podcast.
Well, the first thing about doing any type of move, be it a GBL move, PPM move, putting property in non-temporary storage, the key success to that is having a valid travel order. Okay, JTR paragraph 010206, and it's very specific. Okay, and it basically states that any costs or expenses incurred prior to the issuance of a valid travel order are not reimbursable. I know a lot of folks like to, once they get their RIP, they got an assignment, they want to be like Jed Clampett, load everything up and head to the home of record, home of selection, or the new PDS. But you need that valid travel order in order to make that move because it is the basis for to and from the authorized points.
Right. So basically what we're saying is that in accordance with the JTR, if you don't have an order, you don't have an allowance to move. Any expense you incur prior to receiving that order will not be reimbursed. There's no waiver to the JTR. So when you present to us with your paperwork with no order or anything dated before an order, our hands are tied. There is no waiver to the JTR, period, full stop.
Right, and the paragraph that we're talking about, 010206, has nothing to do with the effective date of orders, okay? But they tend to think that the order published date is the effective date of orders, which is not true. It's a formula that's in the definition of the JTR in Appendix A that will provide the definition of effective date of orders. And what we're talking about is moving prior to the issuance of an actual PCS order.
Absolutely. Okay, and just because you have to get your kids enrolled in school and you're going to get a separation order, there's no allowance. Or you're going to retire or that PCS order is down the road, don't do it. Just don't do it. Wait till that order is published. We want to talk about PPMs and where they started. And I questioned Mr. Stanton the other day. I came in 1991 and PPMs were already in full bloom and we were receiving 80% of the GCC and all that good stuff. But I asked Mr. Stanton, who came in a little bit before me, just a little bit.
Right. And I got involved in PPMs in the early 80s, but I was doing some research on an inquiry I received the other day. And as I was doing my research, I came across a Comptroller General decision. It's B-177515, and it was dated 13 June 1973. So the Diddy move, which is now known as the PPM, had at least been around since 1973. I think I was uh, flunking out 10th grader then. I don't know, but I was in high school when that happened. But it's been around a long time. It went from 80%, 95%. Now we at 100%.
Right. So that 100%, that's the big thing that came about, and why many of our customers came in and asked us, "Are you sure this is right? This seems like a lot of money because I only made 4,000 the last time, and it's 15,000 this time." So that was one huge, I'd call it a beneficial thing for our service members to have that huge increase. That increase is because we are now using the mean of all the rates in that are serviced for a certain channel. So that mean is all the highs, the lows, all those rates are now averaged. We're giving our members an average now, just not the best value. So that's why you're seeing an increase in your PPM incentive. Okay, so PPMs, there's a variety of PPMs that you can perform. We are going to focus on a traditional PPM, but just to let you know, you can personally procure your non-temp storage,
Right.
a small package reimbursement. You can personally procure POV storage, and they all fall into the personally procured program PPM. It's just different parts. You can personally procure non-temp storage when you have the proper authority to do so. Usually we see our small package reimbursements when you're going overseas or you're coming from overseas. So a lot of different options when you are moving. And it's you take the time to do this, perform this. So we take out the carrier and it's at your own tempo. Okay. A full PPM is when you decide to pack and load everything yourself. You control the move, the packing, the loading, the delivery, and even storage if you need it. That option gives you a lot of flexibility for when you're ready to start packing, when you can get the kids away from the house and you can go through that house and start packing everything and loading everything into your rental vehicle. And sometimes you may be able to pack and load everything at a lower cost and actually make a little bit of money in your pocket if you do decide to do the full PPM. You may also perform a partial PPM where you take items that you don't want the TSPs to be handling, sentimental items, high value items, or things that you just want to have when you reach the destination, things that you're going to use right away, personal items, linens, towels, things of that nature. And the government would take the rest of it. We procure the move for the rest of the property. And sometimes if you've had prior moves with the TSP and you've gone through that loss and damage claim issue, you just prefer not to deal with it. It is a great option for you to perform a partial or a full PPM. If you do need temporary storage, make sure you inquire with your local personal property office to get the authorization to store your property. Okay. With any type of PPM, we are going to encourage you to visit your transportation office, be counseled, receive your paperwork, and get all the nuances that are going to be incorporated into that PPM. Because we heard so many times this summer, I didn't know I was supposed to get weight tickets, or I didn't know where to go to get those weight tickets. And unfortunately, that's not going to be a justification to provide you with an incentive. The Air Force will provide you with an actual cost reimbursement if you do not have weight tickets. And that is basically that we are going to try to reimburse you what you spent to move your property. And in some cases, that you're going to miss out on something. If your incentive is $15,000, but you only spent $9,000, you're going to miss out on that chunk of money over here by not obtaining your weight tickets. So,
Kind of
counseling.
like documentation is everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
2278, your checklist,
Every
any
time.
receipts, especially your weight tickets. You
So
never go wrong keeping your weight tickets.
when you're moving, documentation, that's one thing that we saw. A couple of issues with a fire, they lost all their documentation. They had no weight tickets because they left it in the truck overnight. Another vehicle was stolen. They left their documentation in the vehicle overnight. Our hands are tied as far as authorizing an incentive payment without weight tickets, period. Okay. So if at any point we can regenerate 2278s and certificate of expenses. Weight tickets are going to be hard to come by, so secure those. Hold on to those with an iron fist. Put them away so that they're safe and that when you reach your destination, you can turn in a full package, okay? Uh, Traditional moves are pretty easy. Your partial moves are pretty easy. The portion that came into play a big part this summer was our third party moves. Our third party moves were the constant problem.
Yeah, big issue. Third party moves is like, where you go out, you rent, uh, portable moving containers, company bring them out, you load them, or you hire someone. And some of the companies allow you to pack and load yourself and they'll drive it or they'll do it all for you. It just depends on what you pick or how much work you want to do. Okay. When you're choosing commercial moving companies, you need to vet those companies. And, we got the BBB, Better Business Bureau. You can go on internet and just check some of their reviews. And also, we recommend using the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration website that we'll post up later on that you can copy and paste and put in a browser and go and look. But make sure that you vet those companies. You want to make sure that you're not dealing with any type of rogue company that's just out there for the minute, because a lot of these fly-by-night companies, they know that the military do a lot of moving during the summer. They'll pop up with a little address or whatever the case may be, and you Google moving company or household good moving company, and they happen to pop up, and they talk a good game, but make sure that you vet that company very well. And with that said about third party move, we have a special guest here today, Captain Moore, and he's going to be giving us his experience on his third party move and lesson learned and of that such and not to do in a third party move. Is Captain Moore out there?
Yes, sir. Happy to be here. I'm Captain Alexander Moore. I'm a Medical Service Corps officer in the Air Force. And as you said, sir, I had a PCS from Keesler Air Force Base to Monterey, California in the summer of 2022. There's a very high demand during peak PCS season. The available dates for a government contracted move were pretty limited. So we opted for a third-party PPM. We did obtain quotes from several big name moving companies. But during this process, I was contacted by a moving broker via phone. So they asked me about the details of the move. They quoted me a much lower price than other companies. And as you alluded to, sir, at the time they talked a very good game. They promised a very high level of service, basically A-rated movers, quick delivery, et cetera, et cetera. And they were available on the exact date that we needed. So we went into a contract with this company. They provided a binding estimate based on shipment volume and required a pretty substantial down payment upfront that could only be paid by a bank transfer. They wouldn't accept a credit card. In retrospect, this should have been a huge red flag, and one of the things that the FMCSA points out as a red flag. The day the move came, no truck showed up. So we called the broker, said the company they contracted with had issues with the truck, would be there the next day. Again, this should have been another big red flag, but I had put a substantial amount of money down already, didn't want to lose that deposit. When the movers finally came, they came in a rented box truck. It was a crew of only 2 people. They didn't have any furniture pads, packing material, or tools to disassemble furniture. But they did pack everything up fairly quickly. When they were finished packing, the driver took me aside, told me that the shipment volume had exceeded the amount that we had contracted for, and he really wanted a cash payment on the spot to, basically help him fudge the paperwork and provide a slower rate. I refused to do this at the time, told him that I would pay the amount that we originally agreed upon. The truck was loaded, and federal regulations stated that basically a binding estimate must be honored after that truck is loaded. We got into a little bit of a discussion, I guess. The driver called his boss. They told me they unload the shipment on the street if I didn't agree to pay the higher rate. I called the police. So as you can imagine, this was a bit of a mess. The police weren't able to intervene. They said it was a civil matter, couldn't intervene. And feeling backed into a corner, I signed a revised estimate and annotated that it had been done after the truck was loaded. So after the fact, after all this went down, I complained to the broker, and the broker can't do anything. They just referred me to the contracted moving company. We spoke with the company, actually spoke to the owner of the company, and they basically said they wouldn't deliver anything unless the updated amount was paid. So we did that, and then asked for an estimate of when our goods would be delivered. They claimed they had 30 business days, which is roughly in keeping with federal regulations. And over the next couple of months, we followed up with the company directly a couple times a week for updates. Really could never get concrete information. So after more than 30 business days had passed, so really 2 calendar months, we had to get our insurance company involved, and we had to speak to a number of different lawyers. I think we ended up speaking to 3 different lawyers to get this resolved. Getting lawyers involved seemed to set off the moving company. They sent us a letter notifying us that they wouldn't be delivering our goods, telling us to arrange for transportation from their warehouse, which was across the country from where we are. And again, after consulting with the lawyers, contacting the FMCSA, several consumer protection agencies, we basically had to give in. The legal system doesn't operate on the same timeline as a lot of these things. So my wife ended up having to fly across the country, transfer our belongings to a storage locker until we could arrange for other transportation. So I guess to summarize, this was a very large mess, but we definitely learned a number of lessons. The number one lesson Mr. Stanton alluded to earlier is just do business with very reputable movers. Do your research, try to find large reputable companies. And then, one of my key takeaways is avoid brokers. The contracted company that moved our things had a terrible reputation, but we really had no say in it because we had a contract with the broker. The broker sold that contract to a terrible company. So again, do your research, hire a company directly, not through a broker. And I believe this has been touched on a couple of times already as well, is keep all of your documentation. When there is a dispute, that documentation is very, very critical. So that's really all I had to say. I'm happy to stick around for any questions or additional discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Captain Moore. Much appreciated. My question for you is that through all of that, is it going to sway you from performing a PPM again?
With a third party?
So my wife has pretty strong feelings about this as well, as you can imagine, having all of our belongings basically essentially held hostage for a couple months. And so she feels pretty strongly that we are not going to do a third party PPM again. Basically, we're going to have the government move us, or I'm going to put things on a truck and move it personally. We are not going to hire a third party again. It was that rough of an experience that I think we'll just avoid that altogether.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's much appreciated sharing your story. It's going to help our service members kind of give them a better idea rather than just coming from us, but somebody that's gone through the experience and to check all those boxes before they start moving. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Hopefully this helps other folks to avoid kind of running into some of the same pitfalls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as Captain Moore said in his little piece there, is that documentation is everything. Keep your documentation, and you need to keep your weight tickets. I don't think we can stress enough on weight tickets. We can get around any other documents, but it's just hard to get around not having a weight ticket. You can't get reimbursed your full amount without a weight ticket. So you want to do a PPM. You want to make sure that you get compensated for all that can be compensated for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We often receive questions about reimbursement. Why wasn't I reimbursed what I spent for my moving truck, or why wasn't I reimbursed for all the packing material. Please understand that when you spend money on your PPM, you're going to receive an incentive. So whatever you spend, they're going to take it out of that incentive and tax the remaining portion of your incentive. This is a taxable income. So if you spend $4,500, but your incentive was $9,000, they're going to take the $9,000, deduct $4,500, and then tax the remaining portion. So when we say keep all your receipts for everything that you spend, whether it be for Ziploc bags, totes, anything that you spend, boxes, rope, tape, keep your receipts to help defray some of that taxable income for you, okay? So as much as you can, secure all that information. All your documentation, when it is turned into the transportation office, they go ahead and certify your PPM, and then most offices are giving it right back to you. So we encourage you, once it's handed back to you, make that trip to finance. Don't go anywhere else. Don't let it sit in the car for 5 days. Don't take it home. Take it right over to finance. That way, if there's anything that finance needs, it can be addressed right then and there. And that way they can start that process and getting it paid for you.
Now, keep in mind, not every finance is the same. It's probably like not every transportation office is the same. But, some finance going to want you to load your documentation up into the finance portal, and they'll look at it. And some finance have walk-ins where you can drop it off. It just depends on your PDS and your local finance as to how you will deliver your documents. But be sure to keep a full copy of your documents that you turn in, because all us being around the military, documents can get lost. Okay, so if for some reason your documents is misplaced in processing and you have to provide them again, you have a copy to provide to the finance office. So make sure that you keep a copy for your records.
Exactly. When we can't stress to you how important it is to stay organized and get an early start on your move, but don't get an early start until you have an order. Please don't do that. Okay. We've talked about insurance and damage and loss, but I want to go back to the insurance portion, because we are advising you to obtain insurance, because that your PPMs are not covered by the government. We cannot help you. The government cannot intervene with insurance, but it can help you. That extra $25 or $30 that you spend on insurance help cover any loss or damage, if in fact, or hopefully there isn't any loss or damage. If a vehicle is stolen or you're in an accident, it is very important for you to get a police report and file it with the JAG. That way it'll be on record, and I believe they go through the military claims office.
Correct.
For any loss or damage of that. Okay. Mr. Stanton, we left out on third party that the government cannot intervene when
Correct. Yeah, once you go out and sign a contract with a third party, the government has no intervention there. They have no intervention action there whatsoever. That'll be strictly between you and that contractor. And in some cases, you might have to go to small claims court, but you always can go to your local JAG office, and they can kind of direct you. They can't intervene, okay, but they can go and tell you exactly what you would need to do to help you alleviate that issue that you're having with that third party company, So, but the government cannot intervene with that. And sometimes we get calls, constantly this past summer. It's like, yeah, I had this third party carrier, they haven't delivered me yet.
Right.
What can I do? What can y'all do to help me? Well, not a lot. Our hands are kind of tied in that issue.
Yeah. And sometimes, as Captain Moore was speaking, that they asked him for more money and more money. We can't even give you money because we don't have weight tickets yet.
Yeah.
We can't even close out your PPM. So again, our hands are tied. Go back and do that research. So important at that point. Mr. Stanton, is there anything else you'd like to throw in there before we open the floor to questions, concerns, nightmares?
Hopefully no more nightmares, but I really can't think of anything much. I think we didn't pretty much hone on everything, but I can echo all day long, keep your documentation, your paperwork, and if you want to, with the internet and everything today, you can go on the internet and pull up the joint travel regulations, okay? Go to paragraph 051 502 C and D, okay? That's just a portion of that paragraph. It's longer than that. And read up on PPMs, what the government allows entitlement wise, okay? And it'll tell you everything that the government will allow you to do. Also, Air Force Instructions 24-602, Volume 4, Chapter 8. That's Air Force procedures for PPMs. You can go and review that. It's online and review that, you know. And once you know the ins and outs of doing a PPM, I guarantee you're going to have a smooth PPM.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and open the floor or window, whatever you want to call it, to any questions, concerns, issues that you might want to raise with us. We're happy to either answer right now or get the answer for you. So let's have at it. We have Miss Schmidt. Can a member use a reconstructed cube formula like a TSP can in lieu of weight tickets?
A current policy with the Air Force as of now, with headquarters finance and a ruling from the per diem committee, is that no cubic foot the government constructed costs like in using the weight estimator can be used. All you can end up is getting actual cost reimbursement. You cannot make an incentive on the use of the weight estimator or a government constructed cost.
So pretty much we need weight tickets for any incentive. Ms. Schmidt, I have a question on the 100%. This doesn't include any allowance for material costs. So a member may move 9,000 pounds, but if he or she weighs at 9,900, they will only get reimbursed for 9,000 and not for the 900 they still had to move in packing material. On the 100%, this isn't. I guess I need a little bit more clarification on that.
Are we talking about the members' weight allowance is 9,000 pounds, or do they have a higher weight allowance? If you could send that questions to our email address, and we'll drill it down for you. But we just need a little bit more clarification. You know, the government is only going to reimburse you up to your maximum weight allowance. So if you authorize 9,000 pounds and you move 9,900 pounds, you're only going to get reimbursed 100% for the 9,000 pounds.
So if their weight allowance is 9,000 pounds and they move 10,500 pounds, the max that the government will pay is up to the 9,000 pounds. And there is no packing deduction on PPMs. It's only on government moves. So the max that we could pay out would be 9,000 pounds, even though they move 10,500. And that was a smart move because they avoided excess costs or a collection from excess costs, knowing that they could have been or maybe overweight. So that was a smart move for that member.
Yeah, and the authorized weight allowance in the JTR are in table 5-37. So you can go in and see what each rank grade is authorized for their PCS allowance.
Members can include Pro Gear, so it is part of that weight allowance. If the member, in this case, moved to, let's say, 9,900 pounds, and 800 of that was Pro Gear, and it's certified by the Origin, then yes, we can pay up to 9,800 pounds as long as that Pro Gear is certified by the Origin counselor and a detailed list of that Pro Gear is provided at Origin and at destination.
Good questions out there.
Mr. Phillips, how much time do I have to complete my PPM once started? That's kind of an open-ended question because there's a lot of factors that could come into play with that. You have as much time as you need to complete your PPM. If you want your money, I'd encourage you to do it as soon as possible. Sometimes when we take an advance, it's important to get your paperwork turned in within 45 days to make sure that finance doesn't come back and say, oh, we gave you an advance, let's take it back before your PPMs close out.
Right, and finance is responsible for setting that suspense when you take an advance, not transportation office, okay? And especially for separatees, if you take an advance, okay, uh, finance will come back and get that money if you haven't processed your PPM in a timely manner. You know, so as long as you active duty, you got all the time in the world. You're in a pay status, and if you're a retiree, you pretty much got all the time in the world. We say don't wait, but you can turn it in, in a reasonable time. There's one thing that while that was a good question from Mr. Phillip, is that when a member retires or separate and they do a dual move, like a GBL move and a partial PPM, they can get paid out on the PPM, but we kind of like we ask them to hold off until the government move is delivered out and all the weight is either reweighed and so forth, so that you don't get overpaid on the PPM. Because some folks they may be authorized 10,000 pounds, they move 9,000 pounds through a GBL, but yet they move 2,500 pounds as a PPM, and the GBL move hadn't made it there yet, but they get paid out on the PPM. And so they already overweight when the 9,000 pound come in GBL move, and they're going to require Air Force excess costs to go back and recoup that excess money. And I can tell you, I worked in ECAF for a while, and when you retire, you do not want the Air Force messing with your money. Trust me, nobody like to have their money messed with. I remember one case we had, might have been like 2010. It took a member almost 9 months to get his money reimbursed back on the issue that we did a rebuttal for him to try to get his money back because he was wrongfully billed, but it took that long to get his money back. So we just say caution when you do a dual move, government and partial PPM, especially when you retire separate.
And if there's anything that PPA wants to do is to especially avoid any excess costs. So that's where we're saying, hit us with these questions, hit us with any inquiries, email, phone calls, please. At all costs, we don't want to put you in an excess cost position. So if you have a question, ask. I have Miss Hibbler. She has a question. If doing a PPM, a member moves and checks in before they move their family, are they available for the incentive? Always.
As long as you got a valid travel order,
Yes.
you're going to get paid, regardless of who check in first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no caveats on that. As long as you have a valid order, you can move. It doesn't matter when the family goes or if the member waits, 3 weeks before. As long as there's a valid travel order, that's what's going to make any move possible. Anything else? Any other questions out there? Okay, Ms. Schmidt says, thank you. I have this with a managed PPM right now. Wonderful. Let us know if you have any other questions, Ms. Schmidt, or you can always email us at the ticker that's running across your screen. We're happy to engage and help you out as much as we can.
In the future, we are going to have additional podcasts, and we'll get to Gene in a minute. Is just want to let you know we're going to be doing topics of PPM, POV storage, with non-temp. We're going to cover, it's like sometimes the allowance in table 5-42 in the JTR seem to be a little bit of confusion there. We're going to go over clarifying some of those rules that's in table 5-42. So look forward to many more podcasts to come. But like Ms. Taylor said in the beginning, these podcasts are not out here to change what's in the regulations, just provide information. We're not out here to dictate what other services do or whatever the case may be. We just want to provide information to ensure that you have a smooth move.
Okay. Mr. Thomas, are you going to address conducting a PPM prior to the issuance of orders with expenses and weight tickets and dated prior to the publication of the order? And I'm going to let Mr. Stanton answer that because
the answer is no, G. The thing is that when you revert back to the JTR paragraphs 010206, it specifically states that any expenses incurred prior to the issuance of orders are not reimbursable. And basically the JTR is that, and there is no secretarial process, service concern that can go around that. That is stated there that it will not be reimbursed.
Period. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, here we go. Mr. Jason Bailey, can you discuss reimbursement for mill-to-mill and what paperwork transportation officers provide the members? Absolutely. So, and PPA is going to take some of the heat for this because in 2014, I believe, we issued an advisory that said you needed to put costs for the mill-to-mill and do this and that and that. Well, we found that the process was cumbersome and it wasted time for transportation offices. It was not the lean way to do a mill-to-mill move. We realized that a mill-to-mill, each member has their own allowance. Each member can perform a PPM, or they can combine and do one PPM, one payment. However they want to, we're leaving this up to the member or the couple, the mill-to-mill, to decide how they want to proceed with their mill-to-mill move. Instead of all those letters, the calculator, you can either do one PPM in DPS. What we do ask is that you upload a copy of each member's orders to DPS. So upon closeout, we can recognize that it is a combined weight move or mill-to-mill move. And we know that if they've moved 15,000 pounds and we have 2 staff sergeants, they're authorized 7,000 pounds, that they can be paid out completely on this mill-to-mill move. Because those are identified immediately for excess cost. And once our team goes in to say, wow, this staff sergeant moved so much weight, what's going on? We're going to see both orders in there. So you would process it exactly as a regular 2278, same paperwork, attach both copies of the orders when it's submitted to finance. Do not do the letters anymore. Do not split. Do not do 39% of this and 39% of that. It's just one PPM or whatever the members decide they want to do, independent of each other.
And you brought up advisories. You know, right now we're going through the process of reviewing past advisories, either to resend them or delete them, because the JTR changed once a month. Okay, it's updated once a month. Our AFI is updated every 4 years. So, you know, I've got calls where I say, hey, I got this advisory, and when was it dated? 2010. Oh, well, we just had a AFI change in 2020. So, no. And even though the AFI may have NA as expiration, but we just have to be smart about it. If the AFI is updated and the JTR is updated, probably that advisory could be outdated also. Absolutely. So, just be leery on trying to use old documentation on new processes and new allowances and entitlements. Absolutely. And what was that question that popped up?
I saw another question from Mr. Vasquez. Yeah. In the case where a TSP is refusing to provide weight tickets instead of using a weight estimator, is it authorized to use the max weight allowance if the member was given an ACR? Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in there.
That's like a railroad conjunction. You know, you're going this way, you're going that way. Yeah. Mr. Vasquez, please send that to our customer service email address, and we will give you a detailed answer on that. And everything is not cut and dry all the time. You know, you got some black and white answers. Sometimes you have some gray answers. And sometimes you have to connect one JTR paragraph to another JTR paragraph and refer back to a control general decision to come up with some of these answers. So on that one, we will have to actually do a little research and get back to you on that one. Yeah.
Exactly.
Any other questions?
How often do the rates change for PPMs, Ms. Spears? We have rate cycles, and I believe it is for a year.
Yeah, you know, they back in the day they used to do them like every 6 months, but I think it's for a year now. As of what, May. We go into a peak season. Non-peak season, and I believe that we have 4 rate cycles, and they vary based on the peak and non-peak seasons. Is anyone on in Transcom on?
Can they verify that for us? I'm pretty sure it's for you,
I think it's
4 times a year.
It is 4 times a year, 4 or 2 times a year, one of the two. Send that to our box, and we'll get you an answer. We'll contact Transcom and give you a great answer on that. But we believe it's like 4 to 2 times a year. Because you got your winter cycle, your summer cycle, and offset cycle. Okay, I just had from the producers over here in the corner. They say it's 2 times a year.
Okay, wonderful. So, Ms. Spears, it is definitely 2 times a year because the young lady in the corner that gave us that heads up, she knows all about those rates. Thank you, Dr. Griffin. Mr. Bailey, what reimbursement is authorized if a member has a non-A letter from the origin TO? What reimbursement is authorized if the member has a non-A? So a letter of non-availability is basically going to say, make your move, procure your own transportation. It doesn't matter what the cost is. We are going to reimburse you dollar for dollar.
Up to your maximum JTR weight allowance. So if you authorize 10,000 pounds, you got a non-A letter and you move 15, they'll recalculate it and only pay you for the 10,000 pounds of what that would have cost.
Exactly. I do want to advise, though, if there are any transportation offices on, we would highly encourage you, if a member comes in with a letter of non-A, before they actually start making that move, give them an estimate on a PPM, a regular PPM, to see which would be more beneficial for them. Because if they go out and secure 3 bids to move their property and they're at 11,000, 9,000, and 8,000, but the PPM is going to yield them an incentive of 14,000, it'd probably behoove them to take that incentive PPM versus going with the letter of non-availability. So please do your due diligence in assisting that member to see which is more beneficial to that member. Ms. Diaz, what if the transportation office does not allow or work with the member on using a weight estimator when there are no weight tickets? Well, then that member should call PPA, because the transportation office really doesn't have any grounds to deny the use of a weight estimator. It's in the JTR, it's in the AFI, so we can't really give any credence to why
The TMO
would deny a weight estimator.
just posted the weight estimator link on our page here. You can copy that and put it in the browser or save it somewhere. Dr. Griffin, any more questions out there? Ms. Spears.
Ms. Spears, is there an ETP, an exception to policy for members to perform PPMs without having orders to do so?
No, ma'am.
No.
The JTR is basically public law under Title 37, Section 476, and there are no waivers or exceptions to JTR provision within the JTR. Now, you may want to go further and try for a Board of Correction of Military Records to see if they think your case is strong enough to reimburse you for doing that. But majority of the JTR, there is no waivers or exception to the JTR.
All right, so it doesn't look like we have any more questions, but we also want to let you know that there's a variety of resources out there. Besides just the podcast, we have a Facebook page, a PPA Facebook page. Transcom has a plethora of information on their website. We have Military One Source that also has PPM flyers and handouts that you can go to. But above all, your transportation office is going to be your best place to go get information, to get the right information, rather than getting it from so and so and so. Your transportation office should be up to date on all of the new changes and things that are going on with PPM. So go there first. pick up that phone, call your transportation office, or call us. Our phone number is running across the screen, so we are here all the time to answer any questions or reply to any concerns. If there's nothing else, I think.
I got an announcement.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
What?
Stanton. I didn't want to cut him off. I didn't want to cut him off.
Oh, I've been doing personal property for 41 years. I have only worked personal property. I didn't do any packing, crating, any passenger travel, anything like that. It was all personal property. So I went from the JTR when they had the M series paragraph, went to the U's, went extended to 6 numbers. And at the end of this month, I will be retiring. I love this career field so much. It has so much to offer. And we do a lot of good when we help our members make sure they receive the entitlement that the JTR allows and any other supplements out there that allows them to perform in their move. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for signing in today. I want to thank the individuals out there that I've worked with for over, basically some of them been out there as long as I have, like Gene Thomas, Mike Topolowski. So I work with a whole bunch of folks, and I just really want to thank you all, and I appreciate it. And this is not actually the last of me. I have a few taped interviews coming out in the next couple of weeks. It's called Carl's Corner or Ask Carl, whatever Dr. Griffin want to call it, But I really enjoyed my time with the enterprise. I really enjoyed personal property. And I thank you all for signing in today. And I really appreciate this young lady here. She has been by my side for many, many years. And we have been through thick and thin, and especially in the transportation community. We've been stationed at Gypsos together, ECAF together. We've just been at a whole lot of places together. And I appreciate her. And I want to thank you all again. And I'll be retiring at the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you.